Hello, my name is Sharon Lindberg. I'm a doctoral student at the Department of Computer and System Sciences at Stockholm University, Sweden, and will be presenting the paper Design Ethics in Practice, Points of Departure. A lot of important work has already been done related to design ethics, such as books, manifestos, guidelines, movies, frameworks, and academic papers. However, results and propositions from academia seem to be underused in practice. According to practitioners, one reason for this is that academic results are often not in forms that work in practice. One way to bridge this research-practice gap is to involve design practitioners when exploring design ethics. Our aim with the study that this paper reports on was therefore to explore designers' perspectives on ethics in order to find designerly ways to talk about and co-develop design ethics with practitioners. We asked the following research question: how do designers approach ethics in their everyday practice? Supported by the questions, what are their understandings, practices, sentiments, challenges, and needs regarding design ethics? And what are their thoughts on how to apply design ethics in the future? Our contribution is twofold. First, providing a rich account of designers' ethical considerations and describing ways that designers approach ethical issues. Second, presenting openings for when and how it might be suitable to engage in design ethics according to designers. Through semi-structured interviews, we gained insights from 11 designers. We didn't provide a definition of ethics beforehand, since our aim was to capture participants' own interpretations. The interviews were audio recorded, transcribed, and coded. We conducted a thematic analysis, and our results are structured into 3 overarching categories, namely noticing, reflecting, and reacting, which we found are ways that design practitioners approach ethical matters. These 3 categories are, of course, a simplification. It's not a step-by-step process description and is intended to capture how designers approach ethical matters in general terms. First, noticing. This category deals with what makes designers notice ethical issues at work and is related to how they understand ethics. Many had a hard time defining it and suggested that guidelines and principles might be helpful for this, since these kinds of documents often point to what one should notice and be concerned about in general at work. Individual values and experiences affect what we notice too. For some, being aware of ethics in design comes easy. Others relied on the assumption that other people at the workplace, such as salespeople and project managers, make good decisions. In other words, that these kinds of questions are somebody else's responsibility. Some challenges mentioned were about the work form. For instance, that most projects are not long-term enough for the design team to be able to see the bigger picture and therefore not notice potential problems that lie ahead. Other challenges were related to designer and business culture, that is often focusing more on, for instance, growth than on ethics. Other challenges were related to choosing ethical industries, clients, and projects. Second, reflecting. Emotions can affect how a topic is thought of and approached, and it was expressed that ethics can be scary, since it forces us to think about the big questions in life. In addition, one might feel embarrassed for not knowing enough about ethics, and this would also affect one's inclination to engage in discussions on ethics. Different views on responsibility that affects reflecting were also conveyed, such as long as it's legal, anything goes, while others aim for ethical responsibility beyond regulation. Also, the need to appoint ethical responsibility to persons was noted, since if nobody is pursuing it, new things rarely happen, as one designer said. Participants also expressed that ethics is not commonly discussed at work, despite the hotness of ethics as a topic these days, and they wanted tools and methods to help them reflect on ethics. Third, reacting. After noticing that something might be wrong and reflecting on what to do, a person can either choose to react or not. Our main strategy was to say no and not do certain types of work. As one designer said, "You can choose to be active in your role, to dare to stand up and say something." However, it's not always easy to speak up due to lack of guidance and support, which has to do with both practical know-how and feelings. It can be scary to speak up since you don't want to be perceived as a difficult person. And it may take quite a lot of courage, especially for junior designers, to speak up and question the ethics of more experienced designers and managers. Also, if the company wallet is dried up, as one designer put it, it might be tricky to refrain from doing projects. Participants expressed a lack of guidance and would like to have someone to talk to about ethics, who will not think that you're weird or off track for voicing ethical concerns, and that has knowledge of possible ways of action. In our discussion, we highlight suggestions on how to better integrate ethics into design practice. For instance, it was evident that guiding and steering documents shape what to notice, and it should therefore be important to explicitly talk about ethics in these kinds of documents. Stimulating reflective discussions and learning would be important too, as would methods and tools for noticing, reflecting, and reacting. Having dedicated people and roles for ethics was another suggestion. Having people bring ethical awareness into sales pitches, project planning, and design work would infuse ethical awareness into these practices. A head of ethics was a related opening, comparable to a head of sustainability, a role often involving, for instance, strategy, facilitation, and capacity building. These suggestions are derived from our interviews and aim to provide ways to integrate ethical responsibility into design practice on the terms of designers. So, implications and future work. The findings presented lay out areas of importance to design practitioners. By understanding the points of view from practice, there's a better chance of adapting research to real-world needs. We have talked to Swedish designers in agency settings, and a question for future research could therefore be to explore what designers from other contexts are thinking and doing about design ethics. The common grounds and points of difference found would be helpful for developing ethical practices for and in industry. Thanks for listening, and please get in touch if you have any questions or comments.